gents, hope you're doing well. So over the past few years, I've tried various kinds of monitor setups, from a single monitor to a dual monitor setup to a TV for a monitor, and now I'm using a 34-inch ultrawide. So today we're going to compare a single ultrawide monitor with a dual monitor setup, and it will hopefully help you to make the right decision when it comes to what setup will be best for you. Before we begin, comment down below and let me know what monitor or monitors you're using today. So first let's talk about price, because comparing solutions that cost hugely different amounts of money is kind of pointless. A few years ago, ultrawide monitors were luxury products and you'd have to pay a big premium over a dual monitor setup if you wanted an ultrawide. But that's not really the case anymore. Ultrawide prices have continued to drop over the past few years, and after looking around for a while, it looks like a single ultrawide monitor is about the same price as a dual monitor setup. This of course heavily depends on what exact models we're talking about, because both regular and ultrawide monitors vary a lot when it comes to refresh rate, input lag, resolution, and of course size. For the purpose of this video, we're going to assume that you're trying to decide between a single 34-inch ultrawide monitor and two 27-inch 16:9 monitors, because I think that's roughly the closest comparison we can make. One of the advantages of a dual monitor setup is that because you'll probably only be gaming on one of them, you only need one of them to be of a high spec, at least as far as resolution and input lag is concerned. The second monitor could just be a cheaper option for general use, or you could have a more color accurate or a higher resolution monitor for your content production work. So if you will be going with a single ultrawide monitor, you need to make sure that it meets all of your requirements, which can still end up costing more. Aesthetics are subjective, but if you want my opinion, a single ultrawide monitor will end up looking a lot cleaner on your desk. If you are going to go with a dual monitor setup, you might want to look into getting a monitor arm for your screens so that you don't have two different legs taking up precious space on your desk. Having a monitor arm is also a good idea for an ultrawide display, but bear in mind that these screens are generally a lot heavier, so they will need a more sturdy and therefore more expensive monitor arm. I learned this lesson the hard way. I went out and bought a cheap monitor arm from Amazon for about $80, but because this monitor weighs so much, the tilt mechanism was not strong enough to handle the screen, so it would just sort of flop down towards the desk. So if you do want to have a monitor arm, factor that into your cost calculations, because a really good monitor arm can easily end up costing you between $200 to $400. So let's move on and talk about actually using the monitors. For multitasking, a single ultrawide monitor is perfectly capable. You have enough room to have two full screen windows side by side, and there's even enough room to have three separate windows on the same screen. The extra horizontal real estate you get from a single ultrawide monitor can be really nice. For example, when I'm editing my videos, I do appreciate being able to see more of my timeline in my editing software. However, one thing to note is that 21:9 monitors generally have less vertical resolution, and I do notice that because I use several layers when I'm editing my videos, and sometimes I have to scroll down. Web browsing is great. I like to have several, and I do mean several, tabs open at the same time, and having an ultrawide means that all of those tabs don't get squished into oblivion like they do on a regular 16:9 monitor, and I really do appreciate that. Looking at movies and videos is also a really great experience on an ultrawide display. Movies are generally shot in a 21:9 aspect ratio, which means that they will fill up the screen perfectly and they won't have any letterboxing like you do with 16:9 monitors. YouTube videos these days, including my own, are also shot in a wider aspect ratio so that they look good on mobile devices, so that's another win here for the ultrawide monitor. On the other hand, some programs, mostly thinking about games here, like to run in full screen, and that means if you want to be able to change things while you're playing the game, you have no option but to run them in windowed mode, which first of all you might not want to do, and second of all, for many games that comes with a performance penalty. Here, dual monitors have a clear advantage, letting you keep your game running in full screen mode whilst you can display whatever you want on your second screen. However, if you actually want to change what is on your second screen, you do still have to exit full screen from your game whilst you do that. Speaking of games, my ultrawide gaming experience so far has been a mixed bag. On the one hand, the extra immersion you can get from getting all of that extra peripheral vision is truly amazing. Let me show you an example. This is World of Warcraft running in 16:9. This is how I've been playing the game for the past 11 years. Now, here it is in 21:9. Not only do I have far more awareness of what's going on around me, but I also have loads more space for my user interface, which means that the most important parts of the screen aren't taken up by my minimap or chat function. Let's look at Call of Duty instead. Here, I'm able to have a wider field of view without sacrificing the center of my screen as much. I could have the same field of view on a 16:9 monitor, but it would mean that everything in the middle would be even smaller and targets would become more difficult to hit. Now come the downsides. First of all, when you have such a wide field of view, depending on how the game treats this extra resolution, you might find that things towards the edges of the screen become skewed or distorted. This is quite noticeable in Call of Duty Cold War, where, as you can see, the edges become skewed and appear to be closer than they actually are. If you play a lot of competitive first-person shooters, then an ultra-wide display may not be for you, and not just because of the distortion, but it's also because you have so much extra space that you have to cover with your eyes. This is why almost all professional gamers are either using a 16:9 or even a 4:3 monitor. Now, as crazy as you might think that sounds, this allows them to focus in on the center of their screen without worrying so much about what's on the edges. However, for single player games, I think the extra immersion is so nice that I am personally going to continue using an ultra-wide screen going forward. I want to mention another drawback. See, games these days are coming out with support for ultra-wide resolutions, but if you're into playing older games, many of them will need complicated mods in order to make them support ultra-wide resolutions, or they don't work at all. Let me give you an example. Remember Skyrim? I do, and I still like to play it once in a while, so I was very excited to try it out in an ultra-wide resolution. What I quickly realized, however, was that the game as standard doesn't support ultra-wide resolutions at all. What's worse still is if you launch the game in a 16:9 resolution, it doesn't even center the game and give you black bars on the edges. No, it launches the game on the left side of your screen, and on the remaining parts of the image on the right hand side, you just get your desktop wallpaper or even a web page that you left open. Very annoying. Now, I found a quick solution, which was to edit this file and manually change the resolution to 3440 by 1440, which is the maximum resolution of my monitor. Now, this actually works, and if you're just running around in the game, everything looks pretty normal. That is, until you try to open your inventory or your menu, and that's when you realize that the game has actually cropped itself vertically to fit into this resolution, and now half of your user interface is missing. Again, pretty annoying. Now, I've read around some more since then, and I have found some mods that do seem to fix this problem, but my point is that you might have to get your hands dirty to make some of these older games work on an ultra-wide resolution. So, I think that about covers everything from my side. Ultra-wide monitors are by no means perfect. They have advantages and disadvantages, just like pretty much everything in life. Some people love them, and some people prefer the good old 16:9 monitors, and that is completely fine. It's also not like you can't have an ultra-wide display and still have a second monitor. You can absolutely do that. Just bear in mind that it means your second monitor will either be very far off to one side, or you have to have it above your primary monitor, which I personally wouldn't recommend because it means you'll have to strain your neck to look up at it, and I don't think that's good for you. But there are loads of people doing this, and it does work, so you can do it too. Thank you guys so much for watching as always. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time.